Outside our most delicious dreams, man, unassisted, has never flown. And deep inside the spirit of each of us, there's a special fascination, an awe, perhaps even an envy of birds. Now, through a new and enriching video technology, we can explore this ancient bond between bird and man in the National Audubon Society's Video Guide to the Birds of North America. One of the great achievements in wildlife conservation in the 20th century has been Dr. Roger Torrey Peterson's development of the field guide concept. Published in 1934, Dr. Peterson's Field Guide to the Birds gave us a means to appreciate nature without destroying it. Before the field guide, even the great naturalists did their bird watching at short range.
But way back in those days, the only recourse was the use of a gun. In fact, Audubon shot far more birds than he needed for his drawings. It was largely against that background in the early 30s that I wrote my field guide. We were still in what we might call the specimen tray era of ornithology, the shotgun school, if you will.
Dr. Peterson's field guide was an instant success. The current edition is even more effective in helping us to really know the birds with which we share this land. Why are the birds important?
It is important to learn to identify birds so that we can speak properly about environmental matters. Birds are such a key part of the environment. They reflect the life forces so critically, and if they can't survive, in the long run, we might not survive.
This video guide is the first home reference to combine photography of the birds with their sounds. It is a revolutionary adjunct to the printed field guide. With computer-animated video graphics to highlight bird behavior and field marks, this guide uses today's technology to bring us closer to the beauty of nature.
The pages of a book are two-dimensional, and video, in a way, is three-dimensional, plus sound.
The Video Guide to the Birds of North America identifies all species which reliably breed on the continent. This first of 3 discs in the guide covers 6 major groups of birds called orders. The name of each bird appears in a band, the color of which signifies the order. Also, each species is numbered to aid in locating it on the disc. The orders covered on this disc are the loons, streamlined birds of the far north, known to dive to 240 feet. The name bands for the loons are blue, and the loons are the first birds on the disc. The grebes, small duck-like diving birds with sharp bills. They enact elaborate rites of courtship. The name bands for the grebes are green. The pelicans and their allies, a diverse group of long-billed aquatic birds which plunge for fish from the air or from the surface. The name bands are purple. Swans, geese, and ducks, aquatic birds with flattened bills, the waterfowl are masters of air and water. The name bands are orange. Vultures, hawks, and falcons, diurnal birds of prey. Some strike with spectacular speed. Their name bands are brown. And the chicken-like birds, fast-running ground dwellers which escape danger in explosive bursts of flight. The name bands are yellow. This list of the birds on this disc shows the sequence number of each species in the order it occurs on the disc. On LaserDisc players with chapter search capabilities, each species is immediately accessible by chapter number. Printed on the jacket of the LaserDisc is a list of the chapter numbers for all species and for other locations on the LaserDisc, such as the glossary and the descriptions of the major groups of bird species. To find a bird species on the disc, enter the number of the desired chapter into the controls of your LaserDisc player according to the player's operating instructions. Be sure to use the chapter number rather than the species number. Here is a brief glossary of the terms of bird identification used in this guide. There are the leading and trailing edges of the wing, the primary flight feathers, called primaries, and the secondaries. In the secondaries of some ducks, there is a flash of color called the speculum. Features on the head include the bill, cere, crown, and nape. You'll also see the abbreviations AD for adult and IM for immature, as well as the symbols for the sexes, male and female. There is a notation on each bird's approximate length in a normal posture and on its wingspan where that is helpful in identifying the species. A final point. Color is important in identifying birds, and every image on this cassette was carefully color balanced in the production process. You may wish to check the color adjustments of your television set. The loons are distributed across northern Eurasia and North America, breeding in rivers, lakes, and tundra ponds, and wintering to the south in ice-free waters. The species bear striking color patterns during breeding, but are confusingly similar in their more drab and indistinct winter garb. The sexes cannot be distinguished in the field. The legs of loons are located so far aft on their bodies that they move awkwardly on land, but the same shape makes the loons masters of underwater swimming. Loons are known to dive to 240 feet and to stay submerged for up to 1 minute in search of fish, 3 minutes if alarmed. In submerged swimming, they propel themselves with their webbed feet, using wings and tail for quick maneuvers. Loons need a long, splashing takeoff run, but once airborne, their powerful direct flight can carry them at speeds to 90 miles per hour. Migrations may cover several thousand miles. The wings are sharply pointed, and in flight, the head and feet are often carried lower than the body. The slender, dark, upturned bill carried at an upward tilt, the gray head, and bright red throat patch identify the red-throated loon in breeding plumage. The back is dark and finely spotted. In winter, the throat becomes whitish and the upper parts brown, the head a paler brown than on other loons. The thin, upward-tilted bill is always a reliable identifier. At 17 inches, the red-throated loon is our smallest loon. It nests on tundra lakes and along Arctic sea coasts and winters along the entire U.S. coastline. The rounded head and silvery crown and hind neck identify the breeding Arctic loon. The bill appears thin and straight. The throat is purplish black with white stripes. The back is vividly patterned. In winter, the straight, thin, horizontally held bill and rounded head are important, as is the dark part of the crown extending well down onto the face. The Arctic loon breeds on large, deep lakes in northern Alaska and Canada, and winters on salt waters on the Pacific coast. The common loon's yodels and demonic laughs haunt the northern wilderness. Including New England and the Great Lakes in its vast breeding range, the common loon is the only loon to nest in the lower 48 states. It winters along the Atlantic, Pacific, and Gulf coasts, and is the loon most likely to be seen inland. The stout, dark bill is held horizontally. The black head, whitish neck bands, and checkerboard back complete the breeding garb. In winter, the bill is paler than in summer, but the ridge on the upper mandible remains dark. Whitish eyebrows, if present, are distinctive. A partial, dark collar near the waterline may be visible even at a distance. The breeding yellow-billed loon closely resembles the common loon, except for its bright yellow bill. The lower mandible is angled to give the whole bill the appearance of being upturned. The head is black and the back is checkered. In winter, the head is paler than that of the common loon, the body is browner, and there is a dark spot behind the eye. The entire bill, including the upper ridge, is yellowish. The yellow-billed is the largest of the loons, a massive bird weighing up to 14 pounds. It nests in the high Arctic tundra and in winter concentrates on the Alaskan Pacific coast, visiting casually as far south as California's Monterey Bay. There are 20 species of grebes worldwide, 6 of which breed in North America. Grebes resemble small ducks in profile, with the significant difference that the bills are sharply pointed. There are no visible tail feathers. The heads of most species are crested or tufted. The sexes are marked alike. The grebes, like the loons, are diving birds with legs located too far to the rear for walking on land. But unlike the web-footed loons and ducks, grebes have lobes which open and fold as their feet thrust against the water. Grebes spend their time offshore and in freshwater shallows, diving for small fish, crustaceans, and insects. 30-second dives to 20 feet are typical. They can vanish instantaneously with a forward plunge, or, like the loons, can compress air from their feathers and sink slowly. A frightened grebe may surface only its eyes and nostrils from a reedy vantage until danger passes. After a courtship of ballet and operatic vows, grebes build nests of floating vegetation. Tucked under the adult's wings, the striped young ride piggyback even during dives, bobbing to the surface if they lose their grip. Flight is fast, direct, and preceded by a long, splashing takeoff run. But to escape danger, grebes prefer to dive rather than to fly. Like the loons, grebes hold their heads low in flight. The apparent absence of tail feathers makes the trailing feet visible. The least grebe, our smallest grebe, is a dark, drab gray bird with rounded body and short neck. The bill is small and slender. The throat and cap appear black in breeding birds, paler in winter. No other grebe has a yellow eye. Reluctant to fly, it shows a white wing patch and light underparts when airborne. A bird of Central and South America, the least grebe's U.S. range is limited to southern Texas, where it slips shyly through the vegetation of ponds, eating aquatic insects. The compact, rounded shape of the pied-billed grebe is commonplace in shallow, fresh waters across temperate North America. The pale, short, thick bill, an atypical shape for the bill of a grebe, is often compared to the bill of a chicken. It is ringed in black during summer, plain in winter. The cottony rump is often conspicuous against the plain brownish plumage. Diving for fish and insects, the pied-billed grebe appears and vanishes as if by magic, hence the folk name hell diver. In winter, when the horned grebe fishes the coastal waters of the U.S., fresh and salt, it wears a dark cap, strongly contrasting with the white cheek and throat. This contrast is the horned grebe's best identifier at any distance in winter. The back is dark. Gone in winter are the yellowish horns, dark glossy cheek tufts, and rusty neck and sides the birds wear on their mating grounds on lakes, rivers, and marshes in the boreal forests and northern Great Plains. The large size, long neck, and long straight bill give the red-necked grebe a loon-like appearance. Much larger and stockier than the horned grebe, the red-necked grebe is distinguished in breeding plumage by the whitish cheeks and long yellowish bill. Winter plumage, including the front of the neck, is drab gray, and most individuals show a dusky whitish crescent from the chin up to the ear. The larger size and long neck, lacking white, distinguish it from the winter horned grebe. The red-necked grebe winters along the Atlantic and Pacific coasts, favoring the northern portions of these ranges. Look for it in bays, estuaries, and inland waters near the coasts. The eared grebe is a western bird, summer and winter, breeding in the marshes of inland lakes in the Great Plains and westward, sometimes in colonies. On migration, the eared grebe favors salty lakes such as Mono Lake in California. In winter, it may be seen in the Pacific Ocean and its estuaries, and on inland lakes as far east as Texas. Eastern sightings are unusual. In profile, the eared grebe shows a peaked head. The breeding plumage is dark and glossy, with golden cheek tufts contrasting with the black head and neck. The slender, slightly upturned bill is a useful field mark. The cheek tuft is replaced in winter by a white spot behind the ear. The chin and throat are white, and the body is dull gray. Note the extreme rearward location of the legs, typical of grebes. The long, sharply pointed bill accounts for the western grebe's scientific name, Echmophorus, which translates spear bearer. At 18 inches, the western grebe is our largest grebe, and its courtship rites are certainly the most elaborate. It breeds on the Great Plains and westward, and winters along the Canadian and U.S. Pacific coasts, principally on salt water, but occasionally on inland freshwaters. The very long, slender neck, white in front, is diagnostic. The head often appears flat-topped. There is little difference between the breeding and winter plumages, but two forms are recognized, one with white surrounding the eye and an orange-yellow bill, the other with the black cap extending below the eye and a greenish-yellow bill. The worldwide order Pelecaniformes includes not only the pelicans, but the tropic birds, gannets, cormorants, anhingas, and frigate birds as well. All species have bills at least as long as their heads, and have all four toes connected by a web of skin. They are aquatic birds which dive for fish from the surface or from the air, and many of the species are associated with the sea. The tropic birds are committed to life at sea and are not often seen from the North American mainland. Of the three species in existence, none breeds in North America, but they may be sighted off California, Florida, and the Hawaiian Islands, and along the southern Atlantic as far north as North Carolina. Very similar to the other two tropic birds, the red-tailed shows the characteristic white appearance and long streamers which trail from the center of the tails of the adults. The rapid, shallow wing beat is distinctive. One of the world's 9 gannets and boobies breeds in North America. Hovering to plunge, the adult northern gannet shows a white body, black wingtips, yellowish head, and facial outlines suggesting mascara. The spindle-shaped body, straight conical bill, and long, sharply pointed wings present a distinctive profile. Lacking open nostrils, the northern gannet breathes through small openings at the corners of its mouth. There are no differences between the sexes, but immatures are dark their first year, splotchy their second. The northern gannet nests on rocky cliffs in the maritime provinces and winters over the waters of the southeastern U.S. coasts. The throat pouch, common to all members of the Pelecaniformes but very small in some, is developed to an extreme in the world's 8 pelicans. The old limerick is correct. Its bill can hold more than its belly can, a capacity of 2 to 3 gallons of water scooped up with the fish the pelicans catch. The bill is broad, hook-tipped, and enormous, requiring pelicans to rest their heads heron-like on their backs in flight. In fact, the whole bird is enormous. With wings spanning 9 1/2 feet, the American white pelican, one of North America's 2 species, is nearly as huge as the California condor. The plumage is white except for the black arc on the outer half of the wings. The bill, pouch, and feet are orange-yellow. Breeding on lakes in American and Canadian prairies and in the Great Basin, adult white pelicans develop a horny fin on the upper mandible. The fin is lost by the time the birds reach their winter quarters in California and the Gulf Coast. Unlike the smaller brown pelican, the white pelican never plunge dives. Instead, white pelicans scoop fish from the shallows, often in cooperative groups. Large flights of white pelicans may be seen wheeling in summer thermals. The brown pelican folds its 7 1/2 foot wingspread, dives headlong into the water, and bobs to the surface with fish flopping in its pouch. The white heads and necks of the adults develop chocolate-colored nuptial napes extending to their silvery brown backs. Immatures are brown above, whitish below. Cruising the coastal strands in dignified formations, the brown pelican captures the hearts of beachgoers from North Carolina to Florida and along the Pacific as far north as Washington. Of the world's 30 cormorants, 6 breed in North America and live by diving from the surface for fish, principally in coastal waters, though 2 species may be found inland as well. All are large, blackish birds, more similar than distinct. Therefore, range and habitat are important in identification. When perched, cormorants hold their bills tilted upward and show a hunched, vulture-like posture. The necks are long and the bills are long, slender, and hook-tipped. Flight is direct and strong, often low over the water. Cormorants are gregarious in nesting, feeding, and resting. The great cormorant is the largest and northernmost of our cormorants, and is more widespread in Europe than in North America. The large size, whitish face and throat, and stocky neck held straight in flight are the best identifiers. Immatures are paler overall, dark brown on the breast, and pale on the belly. The great cormorant breeds in the maritime provinces and winters on the New England and mid-Atlantic coasts. The only other cormorant to share this range is the smaller double-crested cormorant, which carries its neck in a distinctive crook, or Adam's apple, in flight. A cormorant sighted inland in North America is very probably a double-crested cormorant, though the bird is most common along the coastlines. Note the featherless, pale orange mask and throat patch. In spite of the name, head crests are not a reliable field mark. After diving from the surface in pursuit of fish, the double-crested cormorant perches to dry in the sun. Immatures are pale on the throat and breast, whitish on the belly. Along the Texas and Louisiana coasts, there are 2 cormorants, the double-crested and the smaller olivaceous. The olivaceous cormorant has a more slender profile than the double-crested and an even longer tail. Immatures are dull grayish-brown and paler below than adults. Breeding adults show a thin white border along the rusty throat pouch. The Pacific coast in all seasons is shared by 3 cormorants, the ubiquitous double-crested, brants, and the pelagic. Brants is a stout bird, much larger than the pelagic. Brant's cormorant flies with the neck extended straight. The head is large and rounded, as opposed to being a continuation of the snake-like neck of the pelagic cormorant. Brant's is also a gregarious bird given to group feeding frenzies, churning the ocean waters in shallow dives. The slender, long-tailed, and more solitary pelagic cormorant keeps to remote cliffs to nest and feeds amid surf-pounded rocks. A white flank patch is conspicuous. Breeding pelagics show a small red mask and they erect a ragged crest. Note the slim bill. The immature pelagic cormorant is as dark as the adult, whereas the young of brants are brownish, and young double-crested cormorants are pale on the neck and breast. Larger than the pelagic cormorant, whose northern range it shares, the red-faced cormorant wears a more extensive orange-red mask in all plumages and has a paler bill. Breeding adults are crested. Like the pelagic, the red-faced cormorant shows a white flank patch. It lives in the seas around the Aleutian Islands and the adjacent coasts of Alaska. One of the world's 4 species of anhingas occupies the western hemisphere. Like the cormorants, the anhingas do not have oil glands with which to waterproof their feathers, so after diving they spend time drying in the sun. The anhinga is distinguished by a snake-like neck and head tipped with a straight, spear-shaped bill. The tail is nearly as long as the body, and the silvery pattern on the backs of adults is unique. The heads, necks, and upper breasts of females are buff brown. Juveniles are a more uniform brown. In its southern Atlantic and Gulf coastal range, the dark, cross-like form of the anhinga may be seen soaring or in powered flight of quick, shallow wing beats. A graceful swimmer, the so-called snakebird parts the water with its serpentine neck, body submerged, and slinks through the freshwater shallows to skewer fish. The world's 5 species of frigate birds have long pointed wings designed for effortless soaring over the seas. The very large wing area relative to body weight gives the frigate birds the lowest wing loading of any living birds. The sides of the deeply forked tail are often held together like tweezers. A nesting colony of the magnificent frigate bird was discovered in the Florida Keys in 1969, establishing this as the only member of the family to breed in North America. The 8-foot wings balance on winds over coastal waters from Texas to South Carolina, most frequently near southern Florida. To dazzle the white-breasted female, the male balloons a red throat pouch. The head and breast of immatures are white. The duck-like birds, order Anseriformes, are composed of 2 families, only one of which, the Anatidae, breeds in North America. The Anatidae are a worldwide family of swimming birds which includes all swans, geese, and ducks, 148 species, having flattened bills edged with minute tooth-like ridges and tipped with a small hard nail. The front 3 toes are connected by a web of skin. The thick plumage is structurally waterproof and is maintained by constant preening with oil produced by glands at the base of the tail. There are 42 species reliably breeding in North America. Most are strongly migratory. 8 groups are recognized: whistling ducks, swans, geese, wood ducks, dabbling ducks, meaning ducks that feed at the surface, bay ducks, sea ducks, and stiff-tailed ducks. The generic name Dendrocygna means swan of the trees, and the fulvous and black-bellied whistling ducks were formerly called tree ducks. The necks and legs are conspicuously long, and the stance is upright. The fulvous whistling duck, so called for its rich buff coloration, is common in the open wetlands of Southern California, particularly the Salton Sea, the Gulf Coast, and is now established in southern Florida. Limited in its U.S. range, the fulvous whistling duck is possibly the most widely distributed duck in the world. In flight, the dark wings are framed by white on the rump and flank. The black-bellied whistling duck, in flight, shows large white markings on the wings. Like the fulvous whistling duck, the black-bellied reaches the southern U.S. with its breeding range. Perched, it is a darkish bird with chestnut upper parts and a black belly. The bill is red and the legs are pink. Look for the black-bellied whistling duck during the breeding season along woodside waters in the south of Arizona, Texas, and Florida. The swans are the largest of the world's waterfowl. With a wingspan of 7 feet and weighing up to 18 pounds, the tundra swan is a massive bird. yet it is the smallest of North America's 3 breeding swans. It is also the most numerous, with perhaps 100,000 individuals nesting in the extreme high Arctic and wintering mostly along the Pacific coast and on Chesapeake Bay and Currituck Sound. The plumage is pure white in adults and the neck is held straight. Immatures are dusky gray on the head and neck. A small yellow teardrop mark at the upper corner of the tundra swan's black bill differentiates it from the even larger and much rarer trumpeter swan. By 1933, we had converted all but 66 of the known trumpeter swans to powder puffs and hat decorations. Desperate conservation measures resulted in 2 distinct populations: a migratory flock of perhaps 1,500 nesting in Alaska and British Columbia and wintering along the Canadian Pacific coast, and a larger number of sedentary birds established in parks and refuges in the northwestern U.S. Back from the door of extinction, the snow-white trumpeter sounds again in the northern wilds. The trumpeter is easily confused with the tundra swan where the ranges overlap, but note the trumpeter swan's larger size and the lack of yellow on the bill. The young are uniform dusty gray with a pink bill. The size is awesome. A 38-pound male with wings spanning 8 feet 2 inches is recorded. At an extreme weight of 50 pounds, the male mute swan may be the world's heaviest flying bird. This swan of old world castle moats was introduced in the last century to ornament the grand estates on Long Island, and wild populations now breed in lakes and estuaries from New England to Virginia, and locally inland to Lake Michigan. In contrast with the straight-necked trumpeter and tundra swans, the mute swan curves its neck in a graceful S. A dark bulb protrudes from the base of the orange bill. Except for defensive or aggressive grunts and hisses, the mute swan is mute. Immatures are duskier and lack the dark bulb. Geese are between swans and ducks in size, and the sexes are similar. The greater white-fronted goose is a brownish-gray goose with a wingspan of about 5 feet. The pinkish bill, surrounded by a white muzzle, present the white front for which the bird is named. The belly is irregularly and variably barred with black. White shows above and below the dark tail. The feet and legs are orange. Immatures lack the barring on the belly and the white muzzle. The white-fronted goose breeds on the tundra and winters in California, New Mexico, and on the Gulf Coast. A dark race called the Thule goose breeds near Anchorage and winters in the Sacramento Valley. There are 2 white geese in North America, the snow goose and the much smaller, rarer, and localized Ross's goose. Both have black wingtips and pinkish legs and bills. The snow goose's bill is edged in what appears to be black lipstick. Immatures are dusty gray. The North American population of almost 2 million snow geese fills the skies on its wintering grounds with whoops like children playing. The snow goose comes in 2 color phases, white and blue, until recently considered separate species. A bird born into a color phase will be so marked all its life. The blue phase has a very dark body, a white head, and varying amounts of white on the neck. It travels the Mississippi Flyway and winters mostly along the Gulf Coast. Heavy concentrations of the white phase winter inland in California and on Chesapeake Bay and Currituck Sound, as well as sharing Gulf wintering grounds with the blue phase. White with black wingtips, Ross's goose is marked identically to the white phase snow goose, except that it lacks the black lipstick. The neck and bill are comparatively shorter and the bird is significantly smaller. Immatures are almost as white as adults. Ross's goose lacks the joyous voice of the snow, calling in weak grunts and rattles. The entire population of about 100,000 nests within a small territory on the high tundra of central Canada and winters mainly in California's Central Valley. Nesting in coastal Siberia and Alaska, the emperor goose feeds on shellfish and seaweed and rarely ventures far from Arctic waters. In winter, the white head and nape of the emperor goose grace the barren rocks of the Aleutian Islands, the southern limit of this handsome bird's range. Were it to winter in the lower 48 states, the scaly, slate-gray body would cause it to be confused often with the blue phase snow goose. the principal distinction being the emperor goose's black throat and all-white tail, scaled appearance, and orange legs and feet. A small, dark sea goose winters in the bays and estuaries of both coasts, eating eelgrass and other aquatic plants and rafting at sea to rest. The bird is called simply brant. Brant wintering on the Atlantic coast are lighter on the undersides than the Pacific race, until recently considered a separate species. On Pacific birds, a white necklace is visible, but this marking is limited to white spots on the sides of the neck in the Atlantic race. The head, neck, and upper parts are sooty black. White is visible above and below the tail in flight, and when the bird tips up to graze on submerged plants. For many who live in the U.S., the call of the Canada goose is the voice of autumn, and the long, precise formations track the comings and goings of winter. Upwards of 2 million of these dark, bugling birds journey thousands of miles from nesting grounds all across North America to winter on our temperate inland and coastal waters. Some breed in the east. 10 or more races range in size from the cackling goose, hardly larger than a mallard, to the giant Canada goose, recorded at 24 pounds with a wingspan of 7 feet. All have a black head and neck, white cheek and throat, and gray-brown back. White shows at the base of the black tail. The management and welfare of this magnificent bird are of intense interest to nature lovers. The wood ducks are a diverse group of 13 species living mostly in the tropical regions of the world. One breeds in North America. The wood duck drake may be the most ornate creature living on the North American continent. His mate shows an understated loveliness. Both wear crests. The male's is green with white stripes on the throat and cheek. The female's is dusky brown with a streamlined white patch around the eye. This flying rainbow was nearly lost to overhunting and habitat destruction, but full protection and sound conservation helped the wood duck make a comeback. Preferring quiet backwaters with cover, the wood duck is a bird of the bottomland hardwoods along streams and sloughs, where it pursues a time-honored relationship with the pileated woodpecker, often nesting in the big carpenter's abandoned holes. Important, too, in the wood duck's recovery are man-made nesting boxes from which the hatchlings can tumble directly into the water. Ducks which feed on the surface and have the ability to leap directly to flight without a takeoff run are called dabbling ducks. There are 9 species breeding in North America. The males are generally colorful, and the females wear mottled brown plumage in all seasons. The teal are the smallest of the dabbling ducks, and the green-winged is the smallest of the teal. A metallic green speculum seen on both sexes in flight and sometimes at rest gives the green-winged teal its name. A broad arc of green marks the rusty head of the drake, and a vertical streak of white parts the salt and pepper gray of the sides. The heads of both sexes have a hint of a crest. Flocks of a dozen or more stick tightly together in swift, maneuvering flight. The cosmopolitan green-winged teal's North American population breeds across the northern part of the continent and winters coast to coast. A conspicuous white crescent marks the otherwise dark head of the drake blue-winged teal, and there is a white patch on the flank. The sky blue inboard front half of the wing is conspicuous as the duck vaults from the water and provides the best in-flight identifier for both sexes. At rest, the hen is a mottled, dusty brown. The blue-winged teal nests in prairie potholes and winters inland along the southeastern coasts. The bill of the cinnamon teal is longer and broader than the bills of other teal. The female is an unpatterned, rusty brown, slightly darker than the female blue-winged teal. This flock of blue-winged teal includes a cinnamon teal drake, colored just as it is named. Like the blue-winged teal, the cinnamon teal's leading edges are light blue. The cinnamon teal is strictly a western bird, rarely seen east of the Rockies. It winters from California's Central Valley southward. The similar sexes of the black duck are brownish and are easily confused with the female mallard. In flight, the black duck's dark body contrasts with the white underwings, and the burnt toast body is distinctly darker than the head. Both sexes of the black duck flash a purple speculum. The speculum of the mallard is dark blue. Dabbling for aquatic plants and animals, the mallard drake bears the unmistakable metallic green head, white collar, burgundy breast, and curled tail ornaments. All domestic ducks, except the muscovy, are hybrids of the mallard. Perhaps the most plentiful of waterfowl worldwide, the North American population of wild mallards averages about 10 million. The black duck is principally an eastern bird. The tail of the northern pintail drake is a feathered spike, recognizable even as a silhouette. The purplish-brown head and slender neck are marked by a thin vertical white stripe. The female bears the mottled brown cloak of most of the other dabbling ducks. Her tail is long but lacks the central spike. Plump bodies and slender necks characterize both sexes. North America's 5 million pintails nest on prairie sloughs and tundra pools across the vastness of the north. They winter on marshes, bays, and estuaries across the southern half of the U.S. Some find the winter warmth of the Hawaiian Islands worth the 2,000-mile flight. The long, scoop-like bill of the northern shoveler is diagnostic for both sexes, but the male's green head promotes confusion with the mallard drake. The shoveler's white breast and rusty sides reverse the mallard's pattern. The shoveler is more closely related to the teal, with whom it shares the blue-gray wing coverts visible in flight. Built for straining plant and animal matter from the surface and shallows, the broad bill is the most highly developed feeding organ among the dabbling ducks. The shoveler breeds on freshwater ponds in the northern interior and winters across the sunbelt. The black rump is an important feature on the gadwall drake. The breast and flanks are gray herringbone, and the head is dusty brown. Both sexes show the white speculum in flight and sometimes at rest. The gadwall nests on prairie potholes and upland ponds in the Rockies, and winters mainly in the lower Midwest and southern Atlantic states, preferring marshy lakes and inland swamps. The white crown of the American widgeon drake accounts for an earlier common name, bald pate, bald meaning not bare but white. The sides of the head are metallic green. Both sexes show white patches in the forewings at rest and in flight. The widgeon may keep company with canvasbacks and other waterfowl whose deep foragings float plant material to the surface. About 2 million widgeon nest across the northern interior and winter in southern fresh waters. The bay ducks have a rudder-like lobe on the fourth toe and are excellent divers. Typical of the bay ducks, the canvasback dives to 40 feet or more to feed on submerged plants and animals. Heavy wing loading requires the bay ducks to run along the surface to become airborne. The canvasback drake sports a rusty head and neck, black chest, chalky back, and dark rump and tail. The sloping profile is unique. The hen's markings are a subdued version of the drake's. The Latin name Vallisneria refers to the wild celery favored in the canvasback's diet. Waterfowlers and bird lovers lament the canvasback's present decline, blamed mainly on the ingestion of lead shot picked up while bottom feeding. Canvasbacks winter along the Pacific and in the Midwest and East, concentrating in the Chesapeake Bay. With the rusty head and neck, black chest, and light midsection, the redhead drake is marked all but identically to the canvasback. The hen is a uniform deep tan. The steep forehead and light blue bill with black tip are distinctive. Like the canvasback, the redhead favors prairie pothole nesting grounds and uses intermountain marshes as well. Redhead migration is as much east-west as north-south. A glance will show that the ring-necked duck was very likely named by committee. The white ring around the black-tipped bill on both sexes suggests a more obvious reference. Facial white distinguishes the gray-brown hen. The drake's plumage appears entirely black, except for the vertical white mark on the sides of the breast and the white flanks. The head is crudely triangular. The ring-necked duck prefers forest-lined inland waters in its nesting range and winters in large flocks in southeastern bays and estuaries. The greater and lesser scaup are nearly identical. The greater scaup flashes trailing edges of white nearly to the wingtips. The white stripe in the wings of the lesser scaup is shorter. The brownish females of both have white at the base of the bill. The head of the greater scaup is rounded, the back is light gray. The lesser scaup's head is more peaked, and the back is a darker gray. Bluebill is a folk name for both. Wintering principally on the Atlantic coastline, the greater scaup favors open, salt water. The lesser scaup keeps to fresh water, wintering across the southern U.S. and up the Mississippi to the Great Lakes. The sea ducks are deep-diving ducks of coastal and inland waters. Largest of the sea ducks, the common eider uses its wings to swim underwater to depths of 60 feet, gulping shellfish 2 inches across to be crushed by its gizzard. The male's pattern is white above black. The female's rich brown back and flanks are barred. Immature males resemble the female, but the breast is white and there are white patches in the wing. The long sloping profile of the bill is distinctive. The breast feathers offer near perfect insulation needed in the brutal winters off the shores of Labrador and Newfoundland. White in front of black identifies the king eider drake. His red bill, orange knob, and modified scapulars forming dual dorsal fins present a unique and fanciful image. The brown female is smaller than the common eider hen, has a sandier brown head, a steeper forehead, and the markings on the sides form small crescents rather than bars. Immature males are similar to the female, but the bill is orange-yellow. Nesting in abundance in the extreme north and wintering as far north as sea ice permits, the king eider dives to 180 feet to satisfy a taste for shellfish and king crab. Plentiful in Siberia but rare on the tundra river deltas of coastal Alaska as a nesting bird, the spectacled eider has yet to reveal its wintering range. Around the drake's eye is a black-rimmed spectacle of white. The head is green. The pattern is white above black. This is the only eider with a black breast. The tawny hen wears pale brown spectacles. In both sexes, a fine feathering covers the base of the bill. Steller's eider lacks the sloping, ornamented bills of the other eiders. The female, in fact, is mallard-like in profile, but very dark. In flight and often at rest, both sexes show a purple speculum bordered in white. The head of the drake is white. His back is black, and he sports raccoon-like black eye patches. There are brushy, greenish tufts at the rear of his crown, and a black spot on each side of the cinnamon-tinged breast. Diving with open wings in the Bering Sea, this smallest of the eiders is seldom far from the ice pack. The gaily painted clown suit of the harlequin drake bobs in the rocky northern surf in winter. Pacific populations dive to pick crustaceans off bottom rubble from Alaska to northern California. Uncommon in the east, the harlequin winters south in small numbers to the mid-Atlantic coast. Harlequin ducks nest inland along fast-flowing rivers, gleaning nymphs from rocks in the icy rapids. The hen's dark brown body and white head spots are a muted counterpoint to the drake's rusty flanks and slate upper parts trimmed in white. Both the common and Latin names of the old squaw refer to the constant scolding clangor. The old squaw is the only duck to wear breeding plumage distinct from the variable winter garb, in which both sexes show white heads with dark patches. The bill is short. In all plumages, the male's central tail feathers form a long spike. The most numerous breeding duck on the high tundra of both hemispheres, the old squaw winters on the Great Lakes and along the Atlantic and Pacific to about mid-coast. It dives to 200 feet for shrimp and crustaceans. Scoters are dark ducks of the sea flying low over the surf of both coasts in long lines and V's. Even at a distance, this flock of surf scoters is identified by the white markings on the heads of the drakes. The black body and white head patches account for the folk name skunk head. The dark brown female has pale spots on the cheek and the cap is dark. Both the surf scoter and the black scoter use their wings in a form of underwater flight. The black scoter drake is all black except for the orange-yellow knob at the base of the bill. The brownish female is recognized by pale cheeks. On both sexes, the rounded head is distinctive. The two facial marks and the white wing patch distinguish the immature female white-winged scoter. The bill is feathered to the nostrils. The heads of adult females are uniform brown. Note the white wing marking on both sexes and the small white crescent curving upward from the male's eye. All three scoters nest on inland waters in the taiga and tundra and winter along the length of the Pacific coast where the surf scoter is the most abundant. The black scoter and white-winged scoter winter on the Atlantic coast at least to Cape Hatteras. The surf scoter may be seen as far south as Florida. It is possible to see all three scoters on the Great Lakes on migration and in winter. Between the bright yellow eye and the black bill, the common golden-eye drake wears a round white spot. There is a metallic green tinge to the head, and the body is exceptionally white. The inboard half of the common golden-eye's wings appears white in flight, as shown in Audubon's dramatic portrait. Notice the female's dark bill with yellow tip. The wide-ranging common golden-eye nests on ponds in the northern forests and winters, usually in small groups, on inland lakes and coastal bays. It is numerous on the Great Lakes. The white mark on the face of the male Barrow's golden-eye is crescent-shaped. The head is purplish, and a dark line extends down the side of the breast toward the waterline. The females of both golden-eyes have brown heads and smoky sides, but the Barrow's hen is overall a darker bird. Notice, too, the orange-yellow bill of the Barrow's hen. The forehead of the Barrow's hen is steeper than that of the common. Most Barrow's golden-eyes nest in Alaska and the Canadian Rockies. A smaller population breeds in eastern Canada and winters casually as far south as Long Island. The bufflehead drake shows a wedge of white radiating from the eye and a bold contrast between the black back and white sides. The head appears disproportionately large for this smallest North American duck. At any distance, the unbordered white cockade is conspicuous. There's a smaller white spot on the head of the brownish female. Both sexes show a white speculum. The bufflehead nests in woodpecker holes along wooded ponds in the northern interior. It winters on lakes and coastal bays across the south. Like the bufflehead, the male hooded merganser sports a white crest against a black head, but the merganser's crest is edged in black. The neck, back, and vertical striping on the chest are black. The flanks are rosy rust. The crest of the female is orange rust, otherwise she is brownish. The hooded merganser competes with wood ducks for nesting cavities, sometimes sharing a nest and taking turns incubating. The breeding habitat is woodlands along quiet waters in eastern North America and in the Northwest. In winter, it prefers fresh waters near the coasts. The largest of the mergansers, the common merganser, is a regular winter visitor to inland fresh waters. The drake's green head is uncrested. His breast and sides are white. Considerable white shows in the wings in flight. Both sexes have a thin red bill. The female shows a white speculum and russet brown head, sharply contrasting with her gray body, white chin, and white breast. The brownish red breast distinguishes the red-breasted merganser drake from the common. There is a ragged crest on the glossy green head. The white collar is a good field mark. On both sexes, the eye is red and the bill is long and slender, as is the profile in flight. The female red-breasted merganser is rusty brown, lacking a distinct border between the head and breast. Her head is crested. Like other mergansers, the red-breasted rides low in the water. It can submerge without a ripple, grebe-like, or can roll forward to dive. All mergansers make a long, pattering takeoff run. The red-breasted merganser nests on the ground and winters on marine and brackish waters. The stiff-tail ducks are diving ducks with compact bodies. A bull-necked caricature of a waterfowl, the ruddy duck defends his territory with vigor. The stubby breeding drake's long, stiff tail, black cap, white cheek, and reddish body are distinctive. His bill is blue. The female is grayish-brown with pale cheeks crossed by a dark line. In winter, the male becomes dingy gray with white cheeks. The chunky profile and stiff tail pointing upward are good field marks. The ruddy duck flies reluctantly, escapes danger by diving or sinking, and does not walk on land. It winters primarily on coastal freshwaters, but is seen inland. Birds. Some take live prey, and some are scavengers. All have talons on their toes for killing or holding prey, and have sharp, hooked beaks for tearing flesh. All are capable of soaring flight. In most, the sexes appear similar, but females are larger. Masters of soaring. The American vultures are large, dark birds with naked heads. The black vulture is the smallest of North America's 3 vultures, all of which are scavengers. The unfeathered skin on the head is gray, and the plumage is entirely black except for the silvery primaries. Wing action is short periods of quick flapping between glides. The profile in flight is easily recognized by the short tail and the wings held flat, not sloping upward toward the tips. Gathering in communal roosts, the black vulture is abundant in the southeastern U.S. It is often seen soaring, frequently in the company of the larger turkey vulture. The turkey vulture teeters on the wind with wings tilted upward. The wings are longer and relatively narrower, and the flapping action is deeper and slower than that of the black vulture. The plumage is blackish, except for the pale flight feathers, which give a two-toned appearance to the underside of the wings. The tail is long. The skin on the naked head is red on adults, grayish on immatures. The turkey vulture breeds across the U.S. and is highly migratory. Perhaps uniquely among birds, the turkey vulture has a keen sense of smell, which it uses to find carrion. It's a gregarious bird, especially in winter, often roosting, hunting, and feeding in large flocks. Clinging to existence with fewer than 20 individuals left to soar over southern and central California, the California condor is one of North America's rarest birds. With wings spanning 10 feet, it is also the largest. The condor holds its wings nearly horizontal in flight, with the primaries spread like fingers. The plumage is entirely black except for the bold white markings under the wings. The head is large, bare, and pinkish. The underwings and heads of immatures are dark. The kites, eagles, hawks, and their allies are a diverse family of diurnal raptors. Distributed worldwide, the osprey is a large hawk which lives by catching fish. From hovering or soaring flight, the osprey plunges feet first into the water. It carries its prey streamlined with the head facing forward. The wings are long and crooked at the wrist, where there is a dark marking unique to the osprey. Adults are dark brown with white head and underparts. A dark stripe runs through the eye. Immatures are similar, with feathers edged in buff. With its deeply forked tail and long, pointed wings lined with white, the American swallow-tailed kite is unmistakable. It suggests an immense, graceful swallow. The head and underparts are white. The back and tail are black. The swallow-tailed is the largest North American kite. Locally common in forested lowlands in Florida and along the Gulf Coast, it eats frogs, snakes, and large insects taken in flight. Once almost wiped out in North America, the black-shouldered kite is now resident in California's lowlands and southern Texas. The whitish head, body, and tail, and the black shoulder of adults are distinctive. The long tail is square-tipped or slightly notched. The wings are long, pointed, and dark on the underside toward the tip. Hovering to spot rodents in open fields, the black-shouldered kite appears whitish at a distance and gull-like in its languid movements. Immatures are streaked with rust on the breast, and there is brown on the head and back. The long, thin, curved bill of the snail kite helps it shell the apple snail, sole food of the bird in its U.S. range. The male is slate black. The face and feet are orange. Females are brownish with white streaking on the breast. Both sexes show white above and below the base of the tail, but the rump is dark. The broad wings and dark rump differentiate the snail kite from the northern harrier. The harrier's rump is white. Formerly called the Everglade kite, the snail kite is confined in the U.S. to southern Florida. The Mississippi kite flies like a purple martin, alternately flapping and gliding on wings held flat. Note the gray back, pale rounded head, and black, square-tipped or notched tail. The wings are long and pointed. The black primaries darken the bird's lower back when perched. In flight, the Mississippi kite is smoky gray below, and the upper surface of the secondaries is white. Immatures are dark brown above, streaked below. The bald eagle is our national emblem and a fisherman of grace and skill. It lives almost entirely by catching fish. The yellow bill is larger than that of the golden eagle. The white head and tail develop at about the eagle's 5th year and signify maturity. Wings are held flat in soaring flight, and the leading edges are straight. The immature bald eagle has a dark bill and grayish-brown plumage with pale mottling. The undersides of the wings appear variably marbled. By contrast, the immature golden eagle shows a broad band of white at the base of the tail and some white in the wings, localized at the base of the primaries. The adult golden eagle is uniformly dark brown with a honey-colored nape and crown. The tail is entirely dark. The wings are long, narrow, and held flat in soaring flight. Diving to strike prey on the ground, the golden eagle is still a common sight in its breeding areas in the western mountains and open lands. It is much less numerous in the east. Contrary to the mistaken belief that once caused wholesale persecution and still inspires illegal shooting, eagles do not kill livestock. The northern harrier, formerly called the marsh hawk, quarters the open lowlands, hunting to some extent by hearing. This may explain the owl-like facial disc of feathers unique among North American hawks. Holding its long wings in a shallow V, its body slung beneath, the harrier maneuvers through the reed tops with its long, narrow, banded tail. The rump is white. Adult males are gray with dark wingtips. Females and immatures are brownish. The northern harrier occupies nearly the entire continent. Short, rounded wings and long, narrow tails are characteristic of the accipiters. The accipiters live by taking other birds in hot pursuit, often through woods, as opposed to the long stoop or dive of the falcons. Adults are confusingly similar, immatures even more so. The sharp-shinned hawk is the smallest of our 3 accipiters. Adults are dark gray above, with rusty barring on the underparts. The female sharp-shin, significantly larger than the male, may be almost as large as a male Cooper's hawk. Immatures are light below with dark streaking, brownish above with varied white spotting. In all plumages, the tail is banded. The sharp-shin's head does not project as far forward of the wings as does the Cooper's. The tail of the sharp-shin is square-tipped, and though this difference is subtle, it is the bird's best field identifier. With short, rounded wings and long tail, the flight profile of Cooper's hawk is very similar to that of the sharp-shinned hawk. The main distinction is that the tip of the tail is rounded. Adults are dark gray above, with contrasting dark crown, and finely barred with rust below. Immatures are brownish with streaked underparts. A conspicuous crest can be erected. Cooper's hawk is a shy but determined raptor of the woodlands, more numerous in the west than in the east. The northern goshawk is the largest North American accipiter and the easiest to identify. The fine barring below is black, not reddish as on the sharp-shinned and Cooper's hawks, giving a salt and pepper gray appearance to the goshawk's underparts. The back is dark gray, and the dark crown is bordered on each side by a bold white stripe above the eye. White may be visible under and beside the base of the tail. The passing adult appears whitish, the young slightly darker due to heavy brown streaking on the underparts. The tail and rounded wings of this powerful northern raptor are adapted to maneuvering through thick forests in pursuit of jays, ptarmigans, and other birds. On open ground, the goshawk takes hares and lemmings. Broad, rounded wings, fanned tails, and robust bodies characterize the shape of the soaring buteos. The common blackhawk is anything but common. It is a localized and occasional breeding raptor in the woodlands along streams in some southwestern localities. It feeds on reptiles, amphibians, and stranded fish. The plumage is entirely black, except for a single bold white band across the tail. The blackhawk's wings are broad and the tail is short. The cere and legs are yellow. Immatures are dark brown above, heavily streaked below, have multiple bands in the tail, and a buff eyeline. The chocolate brown Harris's hawk differs from the dark phase of several other southwestern hawks by the flashy white girdle and chestnut shoulders and thighs. There is a white band at the tip of the tail. Chestnut shows above and below the wings in flight. Immatures wear blotched dark brown and show bold white at the base of the tail. The horizontal perched posture often exhibits the long tail and legs. Swooping from a tree, utility pole, or large cactus, Harris's hawk takes rodents, birds, and lizards. This tame, fairly common, medium-sized soaring hawk of the scrublands is sometimes seen in small groups and may nest at any season. The voice of the red-shouldered hawk rings through the forest, along rivers, and in wooded swamps. It does hunt the uplands, particularly in its northern and western ranges. It is a smaller, more delicate bird than the red-tailed hawk. Prey is mostly reptiles, amphibians, and rodents of the bottomlands. This vocal raptor is declining throughout its eastern range due to the accumulation of pesticides in its prey. It is also a victim of the disastrous ongoing destruction of its bottomland forest habitat from the building of recreational lakes on the rivers of the eastern U.S. The red-shouldered hawk is identified by the brownish upper parts mottled with white. Fine rusty barring on the breast appears dark from below. The tail is banded. Reddish patches on the shoulders give the bird its name, but are not always visible. In flight, translucent bands, or windows, show in the tail and wings. The wing linings are reddish. Immatures are whitish below, with dark markings, and, like the adults, show translucent windows. The broad-winged hawk may be the most abundant breeding raptor in the East. Sightings of this small buteo are less frequent than its numbers would suggest because the broadwing favors thick, second-growth upland forests. On migration, flights numbering in the hundreds may be seen over any terrain. Here, a kettle of broadwings circles over Hawk Mountain in Pennsylvania. The upper parts are dark brown, the undersides are finely barred with rust. The tail is crossed by two bold white bands. The wings are short and broad. Immatures are whitish below with dark blotches. The tail has several narrow dark bands. Compared to immature red-shouldered hawks, young broadwings are more compact and lack the translucent windows. The crow-sized short-tailed hawk is widespread in South and Central America, but occurs in the U.S. only in southern Florida, where it is rare. Mangrove and cypress are its haunts, but it can be seen soaring at great heights. The light phase is snowy white below, except for several dark bands in the tail. The dark phase is more common in Florida and is identified by sooty black underparts and wing linings. The light and dark phases may interbreed, but they do not produce young of intermediate color. In flight, Swainson's hawk is distinguished from a squadron of confusing western buteos by the long pointed wings and the long tail. The dark phase is told from other melanistic western buteos by the buff undertail coverts and again by the long pointed wings. There are confusing gradations of color between the light and dark phases. The light phase is dark brown above, rusty brown on the upper breast around a white throat, and white below. There is dark concentric banding on the undersides of the wings and tail. The primaries are dark in contrast to the light wing linings, an opposite pattern from that on all other North American buteos except for the white-tailed hawk. At rest, the long primaries reach below the tail. Immatures of the light phase are variably mottled buff below. Dark phase immatures resemble adults. Swainson's is numerous across the Great Plains and in the arid West during the breeding season. Most winter in Argentina. In flight, the white-tailed hawk holds its long wings in a shallow V, like the turkey vulture. Light underparts and wing linings contrast with dark flight feathers. The tail is short, with a bold black band near the tip. The white-tailed hawk wears a rusty shawl across its gray upper parts. Immatures are sooty dark with white blotches below and have dark wing linings. Widespread in South and Central America, the white-tailed hawk reaches the coastal prairies of Texas. It hunts rabbits and rodents, sometimes gathering to take small animals fleeing grass fires. The zone-tailed hawk closely resembles the turkey vulture. The similarity might be a mimicry, permitting this buteo to approach its prey in the guise of a harmless scavenger. The two-toned wings are long, narrow, and held in a shallow V. The tail is long and narrow, and the plumage is blackish, except for several light bands in the tail. Along wooded canyons and the slopes of desert mountains, the zone-tailed hawk glides, rocking and tilting vulture-like, then plunges for a rodent or reptile. Within the zone-tailed hawk's range, scrutinize any turkey vulture for a feathered head. The massive, hulking form of the red-tailed hawk in a tree or on a pole is a common sight across the U.S. The red-tail has adapted to almost every habitat south of the permafrost, though it shows a preference for open country. Sometimes heckled by smaller birds, it hunts soaring or still hunts from perches, swooping for rats and snakes. The light form, most widespread of several, is dark brown above, whitish and variably streaked below. The streaking often concentrates in a belly band, leaving the lower abdomen and legs clear. A reliable in-flight identifier on all the lighter forms is the dark leading edges. The upper surface of the tail is brick red with a narrow dark band near the tip on adults. The immature's tail is gray-brown with fine barring. This molting red tail, captured for banding, is losing its juvenile tail feathers. The light form may occur anywhere in the red-tailed hawk's range and is the only form common in the east. One western race has a dark phase, which is a uniform dark reddish-brown. Another western and northwestern race called Harlan's occurs only as a melanistic form. A third, Kreider's, is a pale version of the eastern race. The ferruginous hawk is the largest North American buteo. The name comes from the rusty upper parts and thighs of adults. The soaring adult appears white below, except for the chestnut thighs, a mark absent on the otherwise similar immature bird. The long wings are held slightly above the horizontal. A very small percentage of this rather rare buteo occurs as a dark phase. It is told from the befuddling array of other dark western buteos by the pale, unbanded tail. The ferruginous hawk hunts ground squirrels and prairie dogs on the Great Plains, soaring or perched on fence posts. The rough-legged hawk soars on long wings held in a shallow V, or it may quarter low like a harrier, often hovering. There are light and dark phases with variation between individuals. Light phase birds have a light head and are mostly pale below except for a distinct blackish belly patch. The tail is white with a broad band near the tip. There is a dark patch at the wrist. The rarer dark phase usually shows some white at the base of the primaries and a pale base to the tail. The roughleg breeds in the extreme north and is most numerous in the U.S. in winters when Arctic rodent populations are low. Pointed wings, Fast, agile flight and bold whisker marks on the face characterize the falcon family. The dark crest, white head and neck, and finely barred breast identify the crested caracara. The neck and legs are long. The red face is unfeathered. In flight, the wings are dark with white near the tips, and the tail is whitish with a dark band at the tip. Immatures are buff where adults are white, and the breast is streaked rather than barred. Although in the falcon family, the caracara is a scavenger, spending much time on the ground or soaring, sometimes in the company of vultures. The national bird of Mexico, the crested caracara reaches its northern limits in Florida, Texas, and Arizona. It is localized and declining in its U.S. range due to habitat destruction. No larger than a dove, the American kestrel is the smallest North American falcon and is easily our most colorful bird of prey. The male sports a slate blue cap and wings, rusty back and tail, and bold black mustache marks against a white cheek. The female is similar but wears rusty upper parts with black barring. Her tail is banded. The wings, typical of falcons, are long and pointed, and the tail is especially long. After landing, the kestrel pumps its tail. The large head distinguishes the perched kestrel from a mourning dove. Hovering into the wind or sitting on a wire, the kestrel scans open fields for rodents, insects, and small birds. Funneling spots like Cape May, New Jersey in early October offer the spectacle of dozens of merlins chasing fellow migrants. Slightly larger than the kestrel, the merlin lives by taking small birds, mostly in flight. Males are slate gray above, dark on the crown, and heavily streaked below. Females and immatures are dark brown on the upper parts. Mustachial markings are present but subdued. The dark tail is banded with white or buff. The merlin breeds mostly in the boreal forests and winters across the south. At 200 miles per hour in swept-wing dives, the peregrine falcon is the world's fastest bird, and it is likely the fastest creature that ever lived. In heraldic times, the peregrine was the falcon of royalty. By 1965, pesticides had wiped the peregrine off the map of the eastern U.S., and the bird became a symbol for environmental concern. Heroic and expensive efforts to reestablish the peregrine have been successful to the extent of perhaps 10% of the pre-1950 nesting pairs. Some are nesting again in large cities, including New York and San Francisco. Adults are slate gray above and finely barred below. Immatures are brownish above, with feathers edged in buff and streaked below. The thick mustachial stripe is conspicuous in all plumages. The peregrine is somewhat larger than the pigeons it strikes from the air with a closed fist. It has no difficulty taking prey as large as the ring-necked pheasant. Across the continent, the sharp-eyed observer can catch an occasional glimpse of a speeding peregrine. Migrants are easily seen on the eastern coastal strand in October. The gerfalcon keeps to the Arctic, coming south only to the taiga in most winters. It is big news among bird enthusiasts when a gerfalcon is sighted in the U.S. Largest North American falcon, the gerfalcon feeds on large birds, especially ptarmigan, and regularly takes ducks and geese. Individuals vary in tone from a dark phase with gray-brown upper parts to a speckled white phase. In flight, the wings are much broader and are less pointed and swept back than is typical of falcons. Over the Great Plains and the far west, it is possible to see not only the peregrine falcon, but the prairie falcon as well. The two are about the same size and show the same silhouette of long pointed wings and long tail. The prairie falcon is more slender and displays dark wing linings in flight. The coloration is tawny, with buff edging to the feathers on the upper parts, creamy white below with brown streaking. The facial markings are less bold than on the peregrine. Immatures are slightly darker than adults. Food is mostly small birds taken in flight. The chicken-like birds of North America include the grouse, quail, pheasant, turkeys, ptarmigans, and prairie chickens. All are fast-running, ground-dwelling birds which escape danger in bursts of flight on short, rounded wings. The curassows of the New World tropics are a large family with one member breeding in North America. The plain chachalaca calls its name in raucous chorus from trees and bushes at a few locations in the lower Rio Grande Valley. Feeding on berries, shoots, and insects, the slender-bodied chachalaca runs with impressive speed through the underbrush. The plumage is plain gray-brown, and the long tail is pale at the tip. Adults show a bare red throat patch. The family Phasianidae includes more than 170 species worldwide. The gray partridge is an introduced Eurasian game bird. The upper breast and back are gray, and the face is orange. There's a chestnut patch on the center of the belly. Rust-colored outer tail feathers are visible in flight, distinguishing the gray partridge from related birds except the slightly larger chukar. The gray partridge occupies open croplands, wintering in coveys composed of several families. The chukar is gray on the upper parts and on the breast. The white face and throat are outlined in black. Rusty outer tail feathers show in flight. The buffy flanks bear vertical black markings. The bantam-sized chukar has been clocked running at 18 miles per hour. Like the gray partridge, the chukar is an old-world transplant. It breeds on arid slopes and rough canyons in the Rockies and the Great Basin. The ring-necked pheasant is the best established of North America's introduced game birds. The cock is resplendent in his autumn bronzes and long tail of tapered and folded feathers. Above the white collar, the head is glossy green with red wattles. The mottled brown hen has a shorter tail. This very strong runner is well suited to farmlands and forest edges. It is also a strong flyer, but wary cocks often elude the hunter by streaking through the underbrush. The spruce grouse may be seen in trees, eating the needles and buds of conifers. The female spruce grouse is brownish, with barring on the flanks and breast. The male sports a red comb over the eye, gray back, black throat, and black tail with buff tip. A slightly different western race called Franklin's grouse has white tips on the feathers at the base of the tail. The spruce grouse can be difficult to find in its boreal forest habitat, the apparent elusiveness heightened by the bird's silent nature. The blue grouse is identified by its large size and squared black tail with gray band at the tip. The breast is plain gray, unlike the barred breast of the spruce grouse. Courting males display a white rosette of feathers on the sides of the neck, surrounding a bare patch of skin which varies in color from red to yellow. The tame and solitary blue grouse is the common grouse of the higher mountains in the western U.S. and Canada. It breeds in open, park-like forests between ridges and migrates upslope to winter in forests of fir. The ptarmigans occupy Arctic and alpine habitats. The nostrils are covered with feathers to keep out snow. They wear snowshoes of feathers and different plumages for summer and winter. To avoid leaving a trail for predators, ptarmigan may fly directly into a snowbank to roost. The state bird of Alaska, the willow ptarmigan, is white in winter except for the black feathers in the tail. The detail of the head is important. The bill is large, and there is no black around the eye. In the breeding season, the male develops a rusty neck and head, but retains white lower parts with some mottling. The breeding hen is rusty brown with barring on the flanks and breast. In summer, both sexes show white outer wing feathers. The willow ptarmigan breeds on the open tundra and in winter flocks to heavier vegetation. Northernmost of the ptarmigan, the rock ptarmigan, is white in winter except for the black tail and the black stripe through the eye. Breeding birds of both sexes are gray-brown and males are flecked with gray. Rock ptarmigan are distinguished in the field from the larger willow ptarmigan by the black eye stripe and the relatively smaller bill of the rock ptarmigan. Field distinctions in the breeding season are difficult. Seasonal migrations of hundreds of miles are common for the rock ptarmigan. The winter plumage of the white-tailed ptarmigan is entirely white. The white tail and lack of black on the face distinguish it from the rock and willow ptarmigan. Breeding males retain white on the underparts and develop brown camouflage above. In summer, hens are brown, coarsely barred above and flecked with gold. White wings and tail in summer are visible only in flight. The white-tailed ptarmigan breeds in high mountains and takes cover in thickets of willow and alder near the tree line in winter. The ruffed grouse is a solitary bird well camouflaged in brown or gray with barred flanks. The tail shows a dark band near the tip. The territorial drumming made by beating the air with the wings sounds like an old tractor starting. In late winter and spring, the drumming is persistent and it betrays the ruffed grouse's presence more often than do sightings. Males in courtship raise and shake the black ruffs on the sides of the neck. Across the forested parts of the northern U.S. and Canada, the ruffed grouse explodes from the forest floor or from a low limb when least expected. The sage grouse is by far the largest North American grouse, some males being almost as large as a turkey hen. Males wear a black bib above the white breast. During courtship, they inflate air sacs and strut to gain the favor of females. Both sexes show black on the belly and long, stiff, pointed tail feathers. Females are mottled gray-brown. Courtship takes place on traditional mounds called leks. The bird's loyalty to these leks sometimes is strong enough to overcome fear of man and of the changes he may have made to the nuptial grounds. The bird's name accurately suggests the association with sagebrush as food and cover throughout its range. Our two prairie chickens are told from other large chicken-like birds by their dark, rounded tails and barred underparts. During courtship, males inflate air sacs and erect long feathers called pinnae on the sides of the neck. The male greater prairie chicken's air sacs are orange, and the barring is bold and zebra-like. When not in display, the sexes appear roughly similar, the females slightly duller. The greater prairie chicken, of which the extinct heath hen was an eastern form, occupies the tall grasslands. Like the buffalo, prairie chickens were numberless before the vast mid-continental grasslands were destroyed. Today, both the greater and lesser prairie chickens are on the threatened wildlife list. Both are confined to scattered pockets of relatively undisturbed grassland. The barring on the slightly smaller, lesser prairie chicken is paler and finer than on the greater. The air sacs of males in display are reddish-purple. The lesser prairie chicken favors drier, sandier grasslands to the southwest of the greater prairie chicken's range. The short, pointed tail with white edging identifies the sharp-tailed grouse. The underparts are streaked rather than barred. There are fine white spots in the wing. In courtship, male sharp-tailed grouse display purple air sacs. When flushed, a sharp-tailed grouse may fly several miles across its grassland and brushy habitats in the northern prairies. Like the prairie chickens, sharp-tailed grouse gather in spring on their leks to enact a timeless mating ritual. Largest of the chicken-like birds in North America, the wild turkey may weigh 12 pounds. This is the ancestral stock of the domestic turkey, and it is native to North America, having reached Europe early enough for Henry VIII to enjoy a drumstick. The wild turkey is a woodland bird and a powerful runner. When necessary, it is an equally impressive flyer, capable of clearing the forest canopy in vertical flight from a standing start. The plumage is a mixture of iridescent greens and bronzes, appearing blackish at a distance. The head and neck are unfeathered. The legs are long. Uncommon at the beginning of this century, the wild turkey has made a comeback to abundance over much of its former range. Courting males fan their long tails, puff out their chests, drag their wingtips on the ground, and gobble. The uncommon and secretive Montezuma quail shows grayish-black sides with bold white spotting, black and white facial markings, and a rounded cinnamon helmet. Females are paler and browner. Huddling in the grass or dust, coveys prefer to crouch and rely on their near-perfect camouflage rather than to fly. The Montezuma quail occupies open, grassy oak forests in canyons and on slopes in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Most numerous and widespread of North America's quail, the northern bobwhite echoes its name across fields, hedgerows, and woodland edges. The reddish-brown upper parts and rusty streaking on the flanks of this small, plump ground dweller render it effectively invisible in cover. The male's head shows bold black and white. The same pattern on the female substitutes buff for white. Family groups of up to 30 bobwhites winter in coveys which explode and speed away in all directions when flushed. The dispersed covey reunites by a special assembly call. Coveys roost in an outward-facing circle, leaving a small mound of guano to mark the spot. The scaled quail is common in the dry brushlands of the Southwest. It is told from other southwestern quail by the bushy white crest. The neck, breast, and mantle are slate gray and scaly. The scaled quail scurries through the mesquite and creosote bush, sometimes taking a perch. Coveys of up to 150 birds winter together, scratching for seeds and insects. Gambel's quail is one of 3 southwestern quail with heads decorated by an ornate plume. The complete mask of black and the buff belly with a central black spot distinguish the male Gambel's quail. The female wears subdued coloration, lacking the bold facial markings and black on the belly. The sides are chestnut with diagonal stripes. Gambel's quail is a desert bird, usually found in scrubland thickets near water. The otherwise quite similar California quail shows a pale forehead, brown sides, and a scaly belly. The female has subdued facial markings and a scaly belly. The state bird of California, it occupies a variety of habitats, including chaparral, pastures, open woodland, stream sides, and semi-arid slopes. The California quail roosts in trees and gathers in large coveys even in the breeding season. The head plume of the mountain quail is long and straight. Note the chestnut throat and chestnut flanks with bold white bars. This largest North American quail keeps to cover in the mountains of the far west. In summer, it sometimes gathers in very large numbers at water holes, but winters in coveys of less than 20 birds.